Alright everyone, in this video I want to talk about a phenomenon that I call the Mewing Catch-22. What is the Mewing Catch-22? In brief, it is this. In order to have big jaws, you need to mew. But in order to mew, you need to have big jaws. Why is that? Well, because mewing requires a certain amount of baseline oral volume in order to get the tongue up onto the roof of the mouth, and in order to have an elongated neck posture. You simply can't do those things unless your mouth is already quite big. And yet your mouth can't be quite big unless you're doing those things. So what do? Well, first let's just observe that a lot of us who come to jaw hacking find ourselves in this bind, in this catch-22. We want to mew to fix our problem, but we simply can't, because the fact that we have this problem means that it's impossible for us to fix it. This is where artificial expansion comes into play. Artificial expansion such as MSE, double jaw surgery, face mask, SFOT, any of these expansive orthodontic therapies or surgical therapies break us out of the mewing catch-22. They're the solution to the mewing catch-22. It's simply impossible for you to mew yourself out of the hole that you're in, because you can't mew while you're in the hole. And so something like MSE that gives you an extra 5 to 10 millimeters of transversal width in your maxilla could be just the thing you need to get to a point where you can actually sustainably keep the tongue up onto the roof of your mouth. And that could be game-changing for you, because that sets you on a path where now your body is contributing to expansion rather than being in a state of atrophy where the tongue being on the floor of your mouth all the time allows the face to continue to collapse even more as you get older. So many people say to me, all of this artificial expansion stuff is unnecessary. MSE is unnecessary. Double jaw surgery is unnecessary. Just mew. Mewing is enough. And occasionally you hear of these freak cases who have these remarkable mewing transformations. Well, for the first 2 years that I was into this project of expanding and fixing my jaws, fixing my airways, all I did was mew. I was living in a Buddhist monastery all the time, and I simply meditated several hours a day with my tongue pressed firmly onto the roof of my mouth. Actually, the Buddha instructs that while meditating, you keep the tongue pressed firmly on the roof of your mouth. What I found was that as soon as I got a little bit deeper into my meditation, basically as soon as I took my mind off of the direct thought of, okay, pressing tongue onto the roof of the mouth, as soon as I took a little bit of awareness away from my mewing, it collapsed. And this is what happens when your oral volume is insufficient to allow you to mew. You can't do it habitually. You can force it for a while you're aware and paying attention, but as soon as it's no longer the primary focus of your attention, it collapses. And so for 2 years, I tried mewing my mouth bigger, unsuccessfully. I would imagine that I got almost nowhere with that at the level of the bone. I didn't expand the bone one bit. I did strengthen my tongue, strengthen some of my facial muscles, and mentally start to wire the synapses of mewing, but I did not move the bone one bit because I was not able to mew in my sleep or in any of my down moments where I wasn't directly focusing on it. So I might have been mewing intensely, let's say 10 or 15% of the day, but the other 80 to 85% of the day, I was essentially doing nothing. And so any progress that I might have made in terms of stimulating my bone during that focused period would inevitably be reversed during the 85% of the time where I wasn't mewing intently. I acknowledge that some people are young enough where mewing can substantially impact the bone. For example, if you're under, let's say, the age of 14 and you're actually still growing, the tongue can actually serve as a growth guidance appliance. where it can actually influence the direction of the growth. But if you're after the age of, let's say, 16 or 17, where your skull is basically fully developed, then it's not even worth it for you to try to expand at the level of the bone. Like I said, I tried, and I've spoken to countless people who have also tried, and it's essentially a futile effort. You should still mew to develop your soft tissue, to strengthen your tongue, to strengthen your cheeks, to get more defined facial muscles, but don't even think for a second that mewing is going to change your bones significantly. Maybe there's 1% of the people who actually, some even claim to have split the suture mewing. If that happens, it's a tiny minority of people who do it. For the majority of you, you're going to need to break out of the mewing catch-22 with artificial expansion. Artificial expansion, such as MSE, gives you a little bit of elbow room to be able to start to mew habitually. It actually allows your tongue to rest comfortably on the roof of the mouth so that even when you're not paying attention, the tongue just naturally wants to go up and be there. And now you find yourself in an upward spiral where, because your tongue is actually resting there, instead of 15% of the day, maybe 50 or 60% of the day, now your tongue is becoming an asset rather than a liability. It's actually giving you continued benefit over time. It's not going to actually force your jaws bigger quickly over the course of months or even a few years, but over 10 or 15 years, let's say, as an adult, that tongue being there is going to have an effect on the shape of your face. What I'm saying is this: mewing is always necessary, but it's often not sufficient. It's necessary because it's key to development of soft tissue. It's necessary because even after you expand with something like MSE or have double jaw surgery, you need mewing as a retainer. You need to use your own tongue to retain and stabilize your results. You always need to be mewing. You need to mew because mewing trains your tongue to be on the roof of your mouth, and by training the tongue on the roof of the mouth during the day, it naturally will start to be there at night. And the night is key because mewing at night is going to be the key to nasal breathing at night and curing sleep-disordered breathing and sleep apnea. Mewing is always necessary, whether you're doing artificial expansion or not. But mewing is not sufficient. Mewing alone will not get you to where you need to be if you are an adult dealing with craniofacial dystrophy. And that's why JawHacks espouses, for most of you, under the guidance of an orthodontist or a surgeon, some degree of artificial expansion. You need to intervene, break yourself out of the mewing catch-22, give yourself enough oral real estate so that you can actually mew in the first place, and then put yourself on that upward spiral where your tongue now has enough room to actually participate in a sort of organic growth process over the course of many years. So that's it for today's video. Just a brief word on the mewing catch-22. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you tried mewing your mouth bigger? What were your results? My results were poor. It was great for my soft tissue. It was poor for actually growing my bone. And I started at age 24 as a male. Tell me about your mewing efforts and how that turned out. Because I'm open-minded to people disagreeing with me and saying that, hey, mewing actually by itself is enough. So let me know either way what your experience has been. Otherwise, take care, have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon. Peace out.